Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. We'll just begin in a moment. Okay. Good morning to everyone from India, and I'm sure the rest of us are in a different country and different. So good evening, and welcome to our presentation. So as you can see our screen, um, today's topic is about voice interactions, and it's about the past, present, and the future. So before getting into the topic and before diving straight in, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. The hosts for this presentation today is me. I'm Sanjana, and there's Shreya. Shreya, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Shreya here.
Hey, Shreya. Um, so me and Shreya are UX designers. We both currently work at Fibonalabs, and Fibonalabs has given us this platform and this opportunity to present this topic and share our research and understanding about this topic to everybody over here today. So before getting into the topic, just a small gist of what Fibonalabs does. We are a design-led development company offering digital solutions for both web and mobile-based applications across multiple business sectors. We actually started our services in 2018. And today our team comprises of 60 plus designers, developers, strategists, researchers that design and develop and scale ideas by deploying in-trend technologies. So to put it in simple words, we are a team of enthusiastic thinkers and learners who enjoy what we do. So the link to our website has been added to the chat right now. So if you're interested, please do visit our website or write us an email in case you have any inquiries. So so that's a little bit about Fibonalabs, and let's start our presentation. So before getting into the main topic, I'm sure all of us have interacted with devices since that's the main thing that we do today. We interact with our phones, we interact with various devices at home and various different kinds of machines, whether when we're driving or when we're sitting at home or we're watching TV. Before all of that, let's take a step back and look at how we used to communicate at the beginning. When we started communicating with either visuals or we used actions, we used our body language to communicate. Soon voice became a form of communicating with each other. And that happened a long, long time ago when humans to humans, we started communicating. Today, we started communicating to devices where we speak to our phones or we speak to devices that we purchase and that's become a part of our lives. And in fact, today it's taken to the next level where devices talk back to us, right? So we can see a timeline of how things have changed in just interacting with things around us through voice. So we've moved from just interacting with humans, and now we've moved to interacting with devices and devices responding and interacting with us again. So let's get on to the presentation. Shreya, can you move to the first slide, please? All right. So as you can see, today, this is the agenda for today's session. So we've broken it up into 6 parts. So the first part will be understanding voice interactions. What is voice interactions? What is it all about? Then we move on to a brief history. Then we talk about the present scenario of voice interactions. And then maybe we talk about the bright future. How bright does the future look with voice interactions? Is it really going to be a part of our everyday life, or is it going to change, or what does it have in store for us? And then we have a small activity that we've arranged for everybody, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A session. Shreya, can you move on to the next slide? Yes, thank you. Okay, so understanding voice interactions. So before we even begin talking about the past, present, and future, what is voice interactions? So when I was reading up on this topic, I was trying to find the most simple way of understanding this for myself. And this is something that I found and I'd like to share it with everybody here. So a voice interaction in simple terms is any activity that is triggered by the user's voice, right? So once we conduct a particular activity that uses our voice and we allow that action to be completed through our voice, it's basically a voice interaction. So a special kind of activity that is triggered by the user's voice and that it also lets them complete an action by voice. For example, speaking to devices, or I'm sure all of you all know things that you all interact with using your voice today. So that when it responds back to you and when it's triggered by the voice of the user, that is basically in simple terms a voice interaction. So you have 5 keywords that you can break it down into. So the first thing before even creating or before even interacting with a device, you need to speak, right? So speaking is essential. After you speak, the device has to recognize what you say. And once the device recognizes what you say, it recognizes not just what you're saying, but it recognizes the command that you're giving to the device. And once it recognizes that, it it gets into basically completing that particular demand. And when it's trying to complete that demand, it's trying to engage with the user to say that they're trying to complete the command, and and the process is taking place. So once the command or once the action is completed, you have a message that or a response from the device side, and that's when the interaction takes place. So you speak, then the device recognizes your command, it engages with the user, telling them about the command and the action, and then finally the interaction takes place. So this entire process is voice interaction. Can we move on to the next slide, Shreya? All right, so let's get into a few more details. It was very interesting to read up on this as well. Today, we're so busy with interacting with these devices, we sometimes forget about, how do these devices actually work, or how do these details work? Because they've become a part of our lives so seamlessly today. So let's talk about the types of devices. So today, the type of device also influences the scope of interaction, right? So our phones have a role to play. The navigation systems in our cars have a role to play, but each of them have a different scope of interaction. Each of them play a different role. So depending on the type of device, they have a particular role to play even within voice interactions. So we have different devices that we interact with today. We have phones, we have wearables. Wearables are like your Apple Watch or your Fitbits. You have stationary connected devices that that are a part of our home, for example, like Alexa. And we have non-stationary devices that we can carry with ourselves, or for example, our navigation systems in our cars. So depending on the device, the scope of interaction varies. Now, before even on these devices, before even interacting with it, to trigger the device, to start the device, to start interacting with the user, there are different modes of doing that. So there are 4 major modes. One is by voice. So you can interact with, you can trigger the device by either the user can use their voice, or you can, or there's tactile, where you can either push a button or tap on the particular device to start the device. Or you have motion, where you either hover around the device and it starts. And then you have self-trigger. Sometimes the device itself understands what's happening in the environment and it switches on. So these are the different types of triggers under voice interaction, or under how the device can start interacting with the user. Another point that I would like to bring in into this topic is anthropomorphism. So this is extremely important because today, when we interact with our devices, I'm sure all of us have noticed that we talk to our phones as if they are one of our friends, or as if they're actually a human being. So how does this happen? This happens because of this particular term. This happens because today we've given these devices traits, human traits and emotions. We've given them a personality. We've given them names such as Alexa or Siri. We've given them these names, and this makes them so human. So because of this human-like persona that we've created for these devices, it's also created a stronger bond between the user and the machine. Like I said, examples are Google Assistant, Amazon's Alexa, and Apple Siri. So today we forget that we're even talking to devices and we're talking to actually, it seems like we're talking to humans. Even with the terms that we use, we say Alexa or we say Siri, it sounds like just another person's name. So this particular term is very important because this is something that has been done deliberately so that we as users are able to connect better with our devices. Let's go to the next slide, Share. All right. Quickly running through the benefits and limitations. Sometimes, when we're interacting with these devices through voice, we also realize that because it's become a part of our lives, we really don't look at how much it benefits us and what are the limitations of the process as well, right? So when we look at the benefits, one, it increases productivity. Why does it increase productivity? I think we all know that it allows us to multitask, so while we're actually doing a particular activity, when we're actually interacting with voice, it allows us to do a lot more things while at the same time. So it helps us to also increase the ability of what we're doing, and we're able to do maybe two or more things rather than just doing one thing. So voice helps us multitask. The second thing is fast. It's faster and quicker. So the ability of our devices, when we type into our devices, it actually takes more time for the device to understand our typing. It's actually more slower. So whereas when it comes to voice, the device is able to actually capture what the user is saying faster, and it makes the process faster and quicker. So it actually saves up on more time. Then it goes to reach and accessibility. I think this is one of the most important points. For many of us who have challenges in our everyday life, either mobility issues or issues where we're unable, where unable to see well, or we have other kinds of issues, and we're not able to interact visually or move around. Voice interactions play a huge role in their lives, and this is not just for people who face this permanently, it's also for all of us who can face this temporarily sometimes. It allows us to use our voice to get our activities done. And the last point is the pandemic world. I felt that this point is very, very important because we've all faced it, no matter where we are in today's world. Because of the pandemic, we've all come to a stage where we do not want to have contact with surfaces. We do not want to, we want to have the least amount of contact with devices that we're interacting with. So today, voice interactions actually play the most important role, or kind of provide us with the most, it really provides us with a particular advantage where we can use our voice instead of actually touching or really holding our devices and interacting with them. For example, in public forums or in transport, when we're using transportation, we really don't have to touch anything if we have voice interaction available. Now let's quickly move on to the other side of voice interactions. Let's look at the limitations. We've talked about the benefits. So let's look at what the limitations are. So voice interactions and conversations. I'm sure all of us have gone through this. Sometimes when we interact with our phones, or we're trying to talk to Siri, sometimes it just doesn't understand what we're trying to say, right? So sometimes we're trying to set an alarm, but it ends up doing something else. So I'm sure all of us have gone through that, and it makes the conversation a little more difficult. So why does it lie on the limitations, is because it still hasn't refined itself to really understand the user's language. Now let's move on to the next point, the lack of surety of system understanding. So this is more from the user's point of view. So when the user is interacting with the device, the user also doesn't really understand how much does this device actually understand. What is the vocabulary of this device? How much can I speak to it? So because there is no a warning given beforehand, or there's no guidelines given beforehand, this kind of causes a confusion with the user and the machine. Then you move on to the next point, which is realistic user expectations. This is actually very similar to the previous point. This point basically explains about how sometimes as users, we also tend to forget that we're still talking to a device or we're still talking to a machine. So we too don't have realistic expectations when we're speaking to them. We want them to reply to us and talk to us just like how we're talking to someone else. And right now, with all the devices and technology that we have, we are reaching that stage. We definitely are, especially Google Assistant. We are reaching that point, but we still need there still needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done. The next point is language and culture, which is also extremely important in this case, because we come from different parts of the world, especially a country like India, where me and Shreya come from. We have so many languages, and we have different kinds of, within languages, we have different languages within that itself, different sublex. So because of that, we have different slangs, we have different accents, we have different tones. The way we talk is very, very different. So how do we make sure that these devices are also able to understand and adapt to those situations? So it comes on the limitations because it still hasn't really adapted to this broad range of language and culture. It still hasn't kept in mind about certain aspects about language and culture. So it still has a long way to go. The other thing is voice data and how it impacts our privacy. So I felt that this was a very important point to bring up because today we're using our voice, and it's something that's personal to each individual. And because it has access to our voice, it also is impacting our privacy. It has access to how we speak, the way we speak, the words that we use, and the data that it eventually collects can have a lasting impact on our privacy. So it's something that maybe we need to think about or keep in mind when we're using these devices. The second last point is struggle with vocabulary. So it brings me back to the first point when we're kind of having a conversation with these devices. Sometimes, you have the wrong spellings or you have the wrong sentences that appear on your screen, and that leaves us a little bit frustrated. And the last point for this is misinterpretation of words. Again, it's the same, it's very similar to the first point. It's about how sometimes when we're talking to these devices, they just don't get us, right? So hopefully in the near future, we have these limitations, we have refined, and hopefully they're able to meet the user's expectations. So now I'd like to hand over the presentation to Shreya, and she'll take you through the next few slides.
Yes. Thank you, Sanjana, for that information. I think all of us, know quite a lot about voice interface right now. So now that we've seen what voice interactions are and how they work, let's look into a quick timeline of where this even started, where are we right now, and what is it that can be done in the future. I think there's something interesting that we can do about the future. We will look into that. So, first, getting into where it all started. So, in the 1950s, Bell Laboratories came up with a system called Audrey, which could basically understand digits from 0 to 9. So the person who wanted to use the system had to record their voice and upload it onto the system so that the system can understand and recognize the voice when it's trying to listen to what the person is saying. So even when the person was trying to um, say the digits from 0 to 9, they had to give a particular amount of pause after every digit. So these systems were huge and they took a lot of time to process whatever was given as the input. So next we have IBM. So after Bell Laboratories came up with this, IBM took this up and again came up with another system of their own, which was called Shoebox. And this particular system worked in a very similar fashion as the Audrey system, but it could the recognizing of the voice was a little faster in terms of trying to understand what the person is saying. So this particular system was actually displayed in the World Fair during the 1960s, 1961, if to be approximate. Next, we have the DARPA, basically founded a 5-year speech recognition project. So this was from the US Army. So they understood the importance of voice interactions and voice recognition systems. So they went ahead and funded a project for 5 years, and a system called Harpy was introduced, and this system was fed with um, some amount of words, 1011 to be specific, and the system could actually identify all these words. It was fed into the system like a dictionary. Moving from the 20th century to the 21st century, I think we have seen a lot of development in this particular field. A lot of the companies took up the technology and wanted to develop and improvise on all of the devices that were already existing. And this was the time when mobile phones and laptops and desktops had come into the market, and people started using these technologies. So as part of these technologies, companies like IBM or Google or Apple came up with their own voice interaction softwares and platforms. So, like we can see here, during the 2010s, IBM came up with the system called Watson that they use as part of their platform. And we have Google Assistant that was introduced during the 2010s. I think most of us will be aware of Google Assistant and how Google Assistant has, been built and improved until now. Like, so it's been a decade since all of these technologies have been popularized by a lot of us. So as and when, the technology started growing, people started making use of them, and the companies saw to it that they would start developing more when they got to know that a lot of people are using it. So um, moved on to Apple introducing Siri, like we all know today. So there was an interesting thing that happened with Siri, which was at a point of time, if you would ask Siri to say 48 into 10 to the power of 20, Siri would start calculating it, and you know, she would start going on and on and on of all the digits that would, be part of the calculation. And some of them took this up creatively, and they started creating music out of it. So they would ask Siri, and Siri would just go on saying 0000, and they started creating music. So yeah, obviously post that, I think Apple took it up and they kind of limited that. But that was a fun thing that happened with the voice interaction by Apple. Moving on to Amazon. So Amazon introduced Alexa as their voice interaction platform. I think even like Sanjana was saying, all of these um, platforms and interactions have been given a personality by giving them names. So it does feel like you're talking to somebody who actually knows you, or you're talking to a friend of yours. So that is something that's really interesting as well, to be able to give a personality and characteristic for technology like this that you can actually speak to. And I think in 2020s and in the 2021, this we've seen a lot of use of this technology and a lot of improvement that has happened. And pretty sure that there's going to be a lot more coming in this technology, and a lot of us are going to see this particular technology boom in the industry. So even when we look at IoT as a technology, there's going to be a lot of this implemented in IoT as well. Um, so there's something interesting that we can do as part of the future. We do know that there's going to be a lot of development that's going to happen. But let's look into a small activity that we can do here just to get creative and, think completely out of the box, think as silly as possible. So we have a small thing here, which is I will go ahead and unmute your mics so that you guys can unmute yourselves and share your ideas, share your thoughts. So we would like all of you to look around yourselves and pick an object that you like or pick an object that you use every day and give it a nice imagination, give it a nice thought as to how would you interact with that particular object. It could be anything. It could be anything. It could even be a pen that's lying right next to you. So go ahead, feel free to share your thoughts. And I hope we have an interesting conversation with this. Okay.
Yeah. Preferably
Let me.
pick an object that doesn't yet have any voice interaction uh, in it. So yeah, just get quirky. Pick something that you would love to have a conversation with that would make your everyday work easier.
Yes. I think all of you can now go ahead and unmute your mics, or if that's not possible, you guys can, leave a message in the chat section as well. So one of us can read it out. Okay. Okay, to start off with, let me say something from my side. I think let's just start. Um, I just had this thought on what if I could speak to my cupboard? So we always have this issue of, you know, what am I going to wear? There's like so many things to wear, but then we're always like, I don't think I have anything to wear. What am I supposed to wear today? I'm going out. I'm going to office. What am I supposed to wear today? So that's always a question, and it would be interesting if my cupboard could tell me what I could wear, and probably I don't know, like just talk to the cupboard and say this is my mood today. What do you think I can wear? So my cupboard could probably suggest whatever dresses I have or whatever from my wardrobe. So this is something I found interesting. So if any of you have any thoughts like this, something fun, I think it would be nice to listen to your thoughts as well.
Share, that's such a good idea. I think we all go through that situation every morning or every time before we have to leave somewhere. So I
Yes.
definitely like something like that. Yeah. Okay. So Shiva said a book. Read out my last paragraph
Oh,
where I stopped. That's really creative.
oh,
That's a good idea.
yes.
Yeah, I think some when we're reading a book, we tend to forget where we stopped last time, and of course we use bookmarks. But okay, we've got Nora. Talk to my mirror in the bathroom. Reminders. Oh, that sounds great as well.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, that's really. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Shiva.
I think there's a lot of talking that happens in the washroom early in the morning when we're all
I think we're doing so
rushing.
many things at the same time. We won't be able to do everything before we. Okay. So, Bharat,
I want my door to open and close while lying on bed. That's a nice one. It would also be nice if you could uh, if you could tell your fan regulators to, switch off, switch on.
Yeah, all of this is just making us more lazy, but it can be helpful, of course. Okay, we have Madhavan. I want to name my car key and find him. Oh, Madhavan, I think that's one problem we all face.
Yes. Alana has given a nice point there. So
Medicine cab.
having a medicine cabinet
Oh,
reminding us
yes.
about that would be really helpful for all the elders in the house who are under medication.
Yeah, or even youngsters too. I don't seem to have a problem with it as well. Yeah, these are so interesting. If anyone would like to speak about it as well, if you're comfortable doing that, please do. So we have Gautam who
Yes,
said, I like to talk to my walls a lot, only if they respond.
yes, I think at least I do that. Talking to the walls.
Yeah. And Avneet, if my kitchen cabinet can help me with recipes to cook every day, absolutely. And Divya, but if I can talk to my car when I'm driving, and if that can tell me where I should be slow and fast, I can share all my stuff with that. Thanks, Divya. That's also interesting. So this
If any
definitely
of you want to use, sorry, Sanjana.
look,
If any of you want to use the mic, you can go ahead and use the raise hand feature. I mean, we can unmute you so that you guys can talk.
I think this clearly shows us that voice interactions have a long way to go. Can still use them in
Absolutely.
so many places. He's so helpful. Okay, we have Lucy here. I would love it if my bag kept an account of what I should bring with me. Told me when I forgot things. That's really nice, Lucy. Thank you for sharing that with us.
We all end up, going to the grocery stores and calling back and asking, what is it that we have to get? And my
Yeah,
mom always ends up screaming at me saying, why do you keep forgetting? I think that's a good one.
yeah. I think sometimes just finding something in your bag can be so difficult sometimes. You're constantly just going through it. So if your bag just knew what you wanted and told you where it was in the bag.
So, Sanjana, do you have anything in mind like this that you would like to speak to?
It when you ask me, I don't know. But while I'm doing things every day, I think it just pops up in my mind where I would like a certain thing to have, um, a voice user interface or if it could interact with me. But all of these ideas on the chat are just things that I can relate to. I think it's something that we all need, so it's very relatable that we
Right.
all can relate to. So yeah.
All right. All of you can continue sharing your ideas on the chat section, or do raise your hand so that we can unmute you guys
Oh,
and you guys can share. Um, I'll just move on saying we're up for our question and answer session. So if anybody wants to ask any questions or, raise a conversation here, can go ahead. I think all the developers will relate
I
to
really
what
like,
Junaid is saying.
yeah, Junaid, that's an amazing point there. And Silika as well could really
Oh,
save.
prepare a short list for weekend. That's nice.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions about the topic or about what we've spoken today, please feel free to ask us anything. Okay, we have someone I think who raised their hand. Share. Yes, Bharat.
Yeah, so my question is like the all voice interfaces that we see and like we experience have a some computer type voice. So how how we can achieve and like when we can achieve more human type conversations like it will be like just yeah, I'm talking to a person.
Yeah.
So, it is not a particularly question, but I mean, anybody can say as per their understanding and experience.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing you brought up, Bharat. It's actually the first thing that I noticed while I was interacting with devices. I still realized that we still have to adapt to their language rather than them adapting to the way we speak. Today, some of the devices are still like that. But like I was explaining, for example, in terms of, the words that like the way we call, we speak to them, like when we say Alexa or Siri, and the way that they reply back to us, some of it today has been updated and has been refined into speaking like there was just some, another human talking to us. So you can, in fact, you can also have people, you can change these voice, these people who speak to us back from these devices. You can actually change their accents. You can change them from the country that you want to, like if you want an Indian to answer or you want someone else, you want a different accent, you can do all of those things. But I'm sure it still has a long way to go, Bharat, and that's absolutely right. I think Shiva has a question. Oh, we have more questions.
Yeah, so I have another point in this. So I think I remember I saw this somewhere else. Like Alexa has included Amitabh Bachchan's voice, but I have not heard that. So anybody have experienced that? I mean, does it work nice?
Shreya, Lucy has a question. Would you like to?
Yes, I was just looking at that. Some web design. I think, Lucy, that's a good question there. Um, right now, we have this option for accessibility on websites, which is people can choose to, see it, the content in a particular language. I think similarly, um, we could start having designs that would allow for the user to choose whether or not he or she wants to make use of the voice interaction feature. So I think that's absolutely a choice that we can provide to the user. And if it's going to be helpful to the brand or the company, um, that would want to have this feature on their website, I think it's a good way to go about that because they will be reaching out to people who probably do not want to read so much of content, or just came on the website to do a small task, like probably contact somebody, or somebody who has reading disabilities. And it's a good way to approach, I mean, to reach out to such people. But yes, I think um, as part of our web designs, we can provide the user a choice to make use of voice interactions. I hope I answered that question. I think yes, Bharat can go ahead and um, unmute and talk.
I don't have any question now. It was just previous hand.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, no problem.
I wish I mean, I wish I had a voice interaction that I could talk to and had Chandler's voice in it. I, people who are aware of Friends, that would
Yeah.
be nice.
Uh, Hi guys.
Hi, Shiva.
Hi, Shiva.
So, yeah, actually, the Bharat has shared one insightful details. So to that, I wanted to add something. So I remember in one of the Google community event, they have shared one like uh, like the development which they are doing, which is uh, they used to communicate through voice assistant to the receptionist to make a like an appointment. And the same thing which Junaid posted in the chat. So that was one like way of development in voice recognition interface. So they are still developing. I don't know whether it came out, but I never tried. But it was a very like it will be the future, I guess. Like introducing like speaking, it will speak like a real person to the people who is in on other end.
That's nice. Thank you for sharing, Shiva. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Alana has a question. What about VUI in AR? Yes, I think Madhavan has answered that question. I think AR and VR is something that is that is literally booming right now, and we are able to come across so many features that exist for that particular technology and also come up with new things. I think this would be an amazing way to make use of voice interactions in augmented reality. I think uh, that is something we all would probably look forward to. Okay. So do we have any more questions or any
Yeah,
more?
we have Madhavan who asked us if there's any device which can talk in our own voice. I'm not exactly aware if there's a device like that, but I think we can, yeah, just like how Arjun said, I think we can customize it and change it for few features. All right, I think, thank you for everybody's questions. I hope we could answer some of them.
Also, if anybody has suggestions on what we could take up for the next session, you guys can leave a message in the chat section as well. Any suggestions for more of such sessions? And yes, thank you for joining the session today. I hope this was, uh, you know, informative and a little fun as well. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you everyone for joining. Please let us know if you have any feedback or like Shreya said, if there could be any topic that interests you all